Hey there, lovely soul. Welcome back to Noah's Stories. Have you ever met someone who completely changed the way you see the world? Today's story is about bold dreams, quiet strength, and a love that blossomed right in the heart of New York City. Let's dive in. The golden light of dusk spilled across the gleaming towers of Midtown Manhattan. Inside a sleek office on the 40th floor overlooking the Hudson River, Ethan Blake, CEO of one of New York's most powerful real estate firms, stood frowning at the blueprints spread out across the conference table. At 36, Ethan embodied success. Sharp, ambitious, wealthy, and disarmingly charismatic. The Hudson Yards project, a high-end mixed-use development, was more than a milestone. It was a statement, a monument to his vision, his empire. But the current designs? Bland. "This isn't it. I don't want another glass box," Ethan said, folding the papers with a sigh. "I want something iconic, bold, a structure that makes this city look up." His project manager, Marcus Green, ran a hand through his hair. "We've already rejected 4 firms. If we don't choose soon, construction will fall behind." "Then bring more people in," Ethan replied firmly. "There's got to be someone in this city who dares to think differently." 3 days later, she walked in Camila Reyes. No flashy designer dress, no luxury heels, just a crisp professional suit, her dark hair pulled back neatly, and a gaze that met the room with quiet confidence. In a space full of tailored suits and silk ties, Camila stood out. Not for excess, but for authenticity. "Good afternoon, Mr. Blake," she said, her voice calm but assured. "I'm Camila Reyes. Apologies for the delay. Brooklyn traffic at rush hour is a nightmare." Ethan looked up, and for a fleeting second, something shifted in his eyes. Curiosity, and maybe a trace of surprise. Without waiting for an invitation, Camila reached into her deep brown leather bag, pulling out a neatly printed portfolio and a few compact models. She placed each item on the table with deliberate care, as if laying out not just a concept, but a piece of herself. "I've studied the Hudson Yards site extensively," she began, voice steady, but her eyes lit with intensity. "Most of the buildings there are modern blocks, glass and steel. Beautiful, yes, but soulless." She flipped open her design, a trio of interconnected towers joined by green public spaces. The layout was inspired by Spanish colonial architecture, fused with modern lines, interior courtyards, arched balconies, hand-laid brick facades. Every detail radiated warmth, culture, and a distinct New York energy. "My design blends roots with the future," she continued. "In a city like New York, uniqueness doesn't come from shape, it comes from emotion." Ethan said nothing. He'd sat through dozens of pitches. None had felt like this. "Where did you study?" he asked, his voice lower now, more curious than formal. "Columbia," Camila replied. "I grew up in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. My family's Puerto Rican. My father was a carpenter. I grew up with the scent of wood and paint in my lungs. Architecture is how I tell the stories he never had the chance to finish." For the first time during the meeting, she smiled, gentle, genuine. "Camila," Ethan repeated her name carefully. "I think we should talk more about this design. Are you free tonight?" She looked at him without blinking. "I appreciate the invitation, Mr. Blake, but I prefer to keep all meetings within working hours." A soft but firm refusal, Ethan nodded, and for the first time in years he felt challenged, in a way that made his heart beat just a little faster. In the weeks that followed, Camila and Ethan found themselves working together almost daily. What began as strictly professional meetings around blueprints and technical specs slowly stretched longer, sometimes due to heated debates, other times simply because neither seemed eager to leave. Ethan was pragmatic, focused on cost, deadlines, and efficiency. Camila was his opposite, driven by emotion, aesthetics, and the human experience. Their differences led to passionate arguments, but also created something raw, something real in the way they interacted. One late afternoon, after a long site visit, Ethan suggested a walk through his old neighborhood in Brooklyn. They ended up at a small cafe tucked on a quiet corner. The autumn chill had settled in, and the soft glow of lights through the window gave the place a warm, lived-in feel. "Why architecture?" Ethan asked, his hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee. Camila paused before answering. My dad was a carpenter. When I was little, I'd follow him to job sites. To me, a plank of wood, a brick, it wasn't just material, it was the beginning of a story. She met his eyes. I learned to imagine homes before they were built. Who would live there, laugh there, love there? That's when I knew. It's not just a job, it's a purpose. Ethan said nothing at first, just watched her. In that moment, Camila wasn't just the architect he'd hired. She was the woman quietly challenging everything he thought he knew. Something in him began to shift, something he couldn't quite name, but he knew exactly where it started, with her. One crisp weekend morning, Ethan invited Camila to Highline, the iconic park built on an old elevated railway in the heart of Manhattan. He told her he wanted to show her a lot adjacent to the project, one they might expand into later. They walked side by side along the wooden path, surrounded by greenery and modern art installations in the quiet chill of New York's autumn. The hum of the city echoed in the distance, but between them, there was a rare stillness. Ethan stopped at a spot overlooking the Hudson River. He turned to her, eyes serious. "Camila," he began, "I know this started as just a project, but for me, it's become something else. You've made me see the world in ways I never did before." Camila didn't speak at first. Her gaze drifted to the horizon, where the sunset was starting to wash the skyline in orange. "We're from two different worlds, Ethan," she said softly. "You're Manhattan, I'm Brooklyn. You grew up on million-dollar deals, I grew up on layaway dreams. But when I'm with you," Ethan whispered, "I don't think about the distance. I just think about being closer to you." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to move away. But Camila didn't step back. She didn't flinch. When their lips met, it wasn't hurried or impulsive, it was a quiet confirmation that something powerful had begun, despite all odds. That autumn afternoon, Ethan brought Camila to the center of the Hudson Yards site, where, according to the plans, a hanging garden inspired by classic Spanish courtyards would one day bloom. Steel beams towered above them, casting long shadows, while golden sunlight wrapped the unfinished space in warmth. "I wanted you to see this place before it's finished," Ethan said, gently taking her hand, "because right here is where I want to ask you something." Camila turned toward him, surprised. Ethan took a deep breath, then pulled a deep gules velvet box from his coat. "Camila Reyes," he said, kneeling, his voice full of emotion, "you've changed the way I see the world. I used to think success was deals, numbers, power, but since I met you, I've realized true success is finding someone who makes you want to be better every single day. Will you build this life with me?" Camila couldn't speak. Her eyes welled up, and she nodded, then whispered a soft, trembling yes, just loud enough for the entire city to hear, in his heart. That night, back in her cozy Brooklyn apartment, with candlelight flickering gently around them, Camila reached for his hand. "Ethan," she said softly, "there's something I need to tell you. I've never been with anyone before, in every way. I grew up in a traditional family, and I always believed that part of myself should be saved for someone truly worthy." Ethan paused, then pulled her into his arms. "And you chose me," he murmured, his voice rough with emotion. "That's the greatest honor of my life." Just as they were beginning to settle into the rhythm of married life, still basking in the glow of quiet candlelit dinners and shared dreams, Camila received an unexpected email. The subject line was cold and clinical. "Design modification request, immediate attention required." Sender, Veronica Chase, Deputy Chair, NYC Urban Development Commission. Camila had never received direct correspondence from the powerful woman before. The message was brief but loaded. A priority meeting to discuss cultural alignment concerns in the current design, and the absence of representation from authorized community foundations. She set her phone down slowly. A chill ran down her spine. Intuition whispering, "This is not about design." Later that evening, over dinner, she brought it up with Ethan. The moment she mentioned the name, his expression shifted. "I know her," Ethan admitted, his voice lowering. Veronica and I were involved a while ago. Camila looked up. How long ago? 4 years. It didn't end well. She wanted more. I didn't. When she went into politics, we lost touch. Until now. Camila leaned back, her expression unreadable. Not angry, but calculating. And now she's questioning the design I'm leading, in the project you're spearheading? Ethan nodded slowly. Veronica never moves without purpose. If she's reaching out now, she wants something. Then let me be the one to meet her, Camila said, her voice sharper than he'd ever heard it. I want to look into the eyes of the woman who thinks she can manipulate a project we've built, with our minds and our hearts. Ethan stared at her and saw it clearly. She wasn't just an architect or the woman he loved. She was a partner, someone he wanted beside him when the storm hit. That evening, the fundraising gala took place in a luxurious Manhattan hotel. Veronica Chase arrived early, her eyes scanning the ballroom like a director waiting for her play to begin. And her leading actress was already in place, a blonde woman in a striking red dress lingering by the bar, ready to approach Ethan. But what Veronica didn't know was that Camila had already been warned. Claudia, Veronica's former assistant, had revealed everything. Ethan and Camila entered hand in hand, poised and composed. They knew exactly what to do. When Ethan accidentally separated to get a drink, the blonde woman moved in fast. She smiled, lightly brushed his arm, and leaned in with perfect timing. From across the room, Veronica began to approach, expecting a scene. Right then, Camila appeared beside them. No jealousy, no drama, just a flawless smile. "Excuse me, may I steal my husband for a moment?" Camila said sweetly, looping her arm through Ethan's. "Someone's waiting for us." The woman flushed, awkwardly stepping back. Camila didn't stop there. She led Ethan straight toward Veronica. "Miss Chase," she said, her smile unwavering. "Lovely evening. Oh, and we're about to launch a scholarship fund for architecture students from underserved communities. We'd love for you to consider partnering." Veronica froze for a moment, then nodded, speechless. Camila smiled again. This time, for real, Veronica's performance was over. But she had cast the wrong lead. After the gala, Veronica went quiet. No more emails, no surprise inspections, no forced meetings, just silence. The kind that feels more like surrender than resolution. Camila knew it wasn't approval, it was retreat, quiet and bitter. But for her, that was enough. The Hudson Yards project continued on schedule. Camila's Latin-inspired design was praised in the media as a fresh breath at the heart of a steel and glass metropolis. The courtyards, terracotta walls, and green spaces woven into the architecture made residents feel something rare in New York: connection, belonging. At the grand opening, Camila stood beside Ethan on stage. He held her hand under the flash of cameras and echoing applause. And then, before the press, Ethan announced the building's official name, La Vida. La Vida means life, he said, and this project proves that the most enduring structures are built from the heart, not from spreadsheets. As the crowd erupted in applause, Camila gently squeezed his hand. They looked at each other, not with the spark of something new, but with the warmth of something chosen, grown, understood. Weeks later, they moved into a small home in Brooklyn, a house Camila had designed herself. It had skylights that caught the morning sun and a tiny garden where she planted seeds her mother had mailed from Puerto Rico. Their life wasn't loud like the city around them, but it was steady and full. One rainy afternoon, while Camila was sketching in her sunlit studio, Ethan walked in and placed his hand on her belly, now curved with a quiet promise. "Do you think our child will love it here?" he asked. Camila smiled, placing her hand over his. "If they grow up surrounded by this kind of love, then anywhere will feel like home." Outside, the rain fell softly, but in their hearts, everything was calm. 2 years later, a gentle spring morning in Brooklyn, sunlight slipped through tall window panes, spilling softly across dark wooden floors. In the open kitchen of the home Camila had designed, the scent of waffles and fresh coffee lingered in the air. announcing the start of a slow, tender day. Ethan sat at the breakfast table, hair slightly tousled, shirt half-buttoned. On his lap was Leo, their son, nearly 2 years old, with curious brown eyes that sparkled with mischief and a mop of soft curls that danced every time he giggled. He was the perfect blend of Camila's warmth and Ethan's quiet strength. "Leo," Ethan chuckled, steadying the child's hand as he waved a spoon around. "Do you know what day it is today?" Leo babbled something incoherent, but his wide grin shone like the morning sun. Camila entered from the backyard, holding a small sprig of lavender she'd just picked. She wore Ethan's oversized white shirt dusted with flour. She didn't look like the architecture star who once graced magazine covers. She looked like a woman exactly where she was meant to be. "I'm baking your favorite," she said, kissing Leo's forehead before sitting beside them. "And don't tell me you forgot what today is." Ethan winked. "How could I? 2 years ago you said yes, the craziest decision you ever made, but the best thing that's ever happened to me." Camila rested her head on his shoulder. Leo nestled between them, slowly drifting off, cradled by the scent of breakfast, soft jazz humming in the background, and the warmth of a love that had ripened. Outside, the trees whispered in the breeze. Inside, it was peaceful, like a living painting. Nothing more was needed. Everything they'd once dreamed of was here now, in this home, in this child, in this love, and sometimes in the quietest moments, like a child's laugh echoing down the hallway or the soft tap of rain on glass. Ethan remembered the day she walked into that boardroom, and he smiled, knowing everything changed the moment she laid those models on the table. If this story touched your heart even a little, don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment below. What would you do if love showed up where you least expected it? Until next time, keep believing in quiet miracles.